Again, just finishing up these guys from yesterday. And again, we were talking for the most part about where our zeros, where our x-intercepts were at, and how to find those, since those are solutions when we get nasty stuff sometimes that we may not want to factor, or may not be able to factor in some cases. So, instead of having to use a bunch of formulas and things, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and we're going to get those typed into the calculator. Now again, I'm not going to get real fancy with some of this, even though it is easier to put in decimals if you know their decimal equivalents of things. If you do decide to go ahead and plug in the fractions, make sure you're using parentheses around the fractions, because otherwise that can get a little bit ugly. So let's see, make sure we've got our equivalent here. Yes. Okay, so I've got a graph. I can see everything. I kind of can see where my zeros might come out as whole numbers here. It looks like possibly at 1 and 5. So like we'd mentioned yesterday, if you think they come out at a whole number, you can go ahead and hit trace, type in the number that you think may be one of your intercepts, and just check. And if we get a y equals 0, that is 1. So like for instance here, so we have 1, and 5 was the other place. So I'm going to hit trace again. Let's try out 5. Well, all right, I got them both right off the bat. Now, will that happen every time? No. Okay, and we'll get to some here in a minute that, well, it's just not going to work quite that nice. As far as some of the other values go, okay, again, if I'm looking for my y-intercept, if I just find out the value where x equals 0, that'll give me my y-intercept each time. So my y-intercept would be at 0, and then 2.5. I also sometimes can get that from a chart, but if it's not a whole number, that can be a little bit tricky to get. So just using the trace function in the x equals 0 is the easiest way to go. Now my vertex, now that's a different story. We've talked a couple of different times about how you can do this. You could go to the table and hope that somewhere along the line, if you kept scrolling down, ooh, you'd see symmetry. Now, is that always the easiest way to go? No. Now in this case, I see that because I see the negative 1.5 and the 0 and the 2.5. I got fortunate that my value in the middle here, 3, negative 2, looks to be my vertex, which would make my axis of symmetry x equals 3. But let's say that didn't happen for me. Let's say I didn't think of that. And I just get to this graph. Can I find it out another way? Sure. If I do second trace, get into my calculate function, and again, some descriptions of that are on the front of the note sheet, and we talked about that yesterday. Here, I notice, since my graph's opening up, that I'd have a minimum where my vertex is. So that's what I'm going to look for. So the minimum, and we talked about getting my cursor guide to about where I think the vertex would be, and then for left bound, just giving 3, 4 arrow clicks to the left, hit enter, and then get back to where I think it is, just about at my vertex. A few clicks to the right. Again, anywhere to the right of it's fine. My guess really doesn't matter. So in this case, my minimum, since it opens up, would be my vertex. There's the 3, negative 2 that I got by looking at my chart. So I have several options with these. But the one thing I have to, again, reiterate is we always have to have these equal to 0. So if there is a value on the other side, it needs to come over to the x squared side. And again, I have to do an opposite to do that. So I'd plus the 2 over. And that would be the equation that I'm working with. So once I get that typed in, again, I'll always graphically look at it to see if I can get some information from it. Now this time it looks like, I don't know, maybe 0 and maybe 2. Let's try this out. So trace, 0. No, my y value is 2. It's way up there. Okay, that didn't work. What about trace? Let's try out 2. Okay, that one worked. So x equals 2 is one of them. I'm not sure about this other one. So if I'm not sure and I have to find another way, here's how we do that again. I'm going to go back to my second trace, to my calculate function, except now I'm looking for a 0. That's another way of saying the x-intercept. So I'm going to hit enter. So I'm going to go about, again, to where that would be, get kind of close to it. 3 or 4 clicks to the left. So it's real similar, and hit enter, to what I do when I'm doing the vertex. So we'll get back to where it is. 1, 2, 3 clicks the other way, because again, I'm just trapping that point. So if I hit enter, get a little closer, I find out my other one is at about 1/3 or about 3.33. Okay, and that's fine. My y-intercept, still going to find it the same way. Trace x equals 0, my y equals 2. So my y-intercept is at 0, 2. My vertex, I'm not even going to try to get lucky with the chart this time. I'm going to be proper here. And again, since it's opening up, and I know that because my a value is positive, it'd be a minimum. So again, get near my vertex, go a few to the left, get back to my vertex, a few clicks to the right, come back towards the bottom here. Ooh, that's a nice little mess. My vertex, and on most of these, we're going to round to tenths, because that's what we're going to be doing in the homework anyway. So 1.2, negative 2.1 would be fine. And my axis is, again, just going to be the x value of my vertex. Bless you. The only other thing that's any different for you to do as far as the homework's going to go are those last 2 problems at the bottom. And again, this is just going to be some substitution stuff. So let me move the calculator for a minute here. Ball's thrown upward with a velocity of 32 feet per second. If x is seconds, its height is given by this formula. Find when the ball hits the ground. Well, let's see. What height is the ball at when it hits the ground? I think that's going to be at 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get this plugged in. I'm going to type that into the old calculator here. So we've got negative 16x squared plus 32x plus 7. Now if I graph that, you're like, dude, it's like way up out here out of the screen. But my important thing is I want to know what the zeros are, because those are the possible solutions. So if I go looking for my zeros, I'm like, okay, let's see. If I do it my nice way and I do my second trace and I'm looking for a 0, okay, now here's my blinky dude, my cursor. Okay, there he is. Now, this is going to seem strange because he's going to go off the screen. Still click your left button here 3 times. Trust that he's still there, you just can't see him. Hit enter. We'll hit the right arrows to bring him back. There he is. Just like before, we're going to hit 3 times to the right to get above as well. Okay, trust it. Hit enter. He will come back, just like the dog comes back. There he is. Now, I look at that 0, and I'm like, okay, so x is negative 0.2. Can it take negative 0.2 seconds for the ball to hit the ground? Nah, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, must be the other one. So let's get it. All right, one last one. Now some of you are like, I can't see him anymore. Keep going, he'll show back up. There he comes. So again, and you may not be able to get right on. So once we're close, we'll go left. My 3 clicks. Hit enter. Come back down. Right 3 clicks, because we got to click on both sides. And then we're just going to kind of get close here. Okay, that works. So this one is x equals 2.2, and that will be the only one that's sensible. When you do these, typically you're going to get one that doesn't make sense and one that does. Occasionally you might get 2 answers that work. That's all I can tell you as far as that goes. And then actually the easiest part of the section, we're squeezing just in time here, use a, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What equation did you put in there?
This,
I put in the equation you wrote down and I got completely different answers.
this guy? Well, let's see what's going on here, because in worst case scenario, we'll talk about number 3. answer's different? Okay. 2.2? Yep. What? But it did give you an answer when you did it? Sometimes? Okay. Okay. I'm wondering if maybe, did you get 0 when you put it in, or did you accidentally hit, like, you're looking for the minimum?
I did 0.
It's weird. Okay. Have to keep an eye out on that. Oh, I got this still recording. Oh dear.